A warm good morning to all of you. It's a beautiful morning and we're back once again with Breakfast News. I'm Preeti, with me is Rukma. In the next 1 hour, we'll get to everything that's making it to the headlines. To begin with, yes, it's a great day, adventurous day we've woken up to. It's the women's hockey team pitted against Great Britain and they're leading 3-2. So the match is in the decisive moments. Let's hope the day turns out as good as it was yesterday when the men's brought in that bronze medal, and today the Indian women's hockey team is vying for a bronze medal. Let's hope the best for the Indian women's hockey team.
Right, we are wishing them all the best, keeping our eyes on that story. And as far as we know, reports suggest that we are leading against the mighty the Great Britain. We'll have to wait and watch for that, but we'll be bringing you all those updates at regular intervals. Meanwhile, other news as well, all the national headline stories, news from other sports, business and much more. But first, the headlines.
Indian women's hockey team leads with 3 each against Great Britain in Tokyo 2020. Team India eyeing for bronze medal in their maiden Olympic podium clash at Tokyo 2020. Wrestlers Bajrang Punia and Seema Bisla also in focus in the men and women's category respectively. The scorecard reads 3 each.
In a first-of-its-kind initiative, Prime Minister Narendra Modi to virtually interact with heads of Indian missions abroad and stakeholders of the trade and commerce sector today. PM to give a clarion call for local goes global, make in India for the world.
Today in Parliament, Lok Sabha is slated to discuss COVID under Rule 193. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman to move the Taxation Amendment Bill 2021. Dharmendra Pradhan to move the Central Universities Amendment Bill 2021, while private members' bills also lined up for introduction in both the houses.
India slams OIC for reference to Jammu and Kashmir, saying that the organization has no locus standi in matters relating to Jammu and Kashmir. India also lodges firm protests with Pak High Commission in New Delhi over attacks on minority communities and their places of worship in Pakistan.
In a significant achievement, India's cumulative COVID vaccination coverage has crossed 49 crore landmark milestone. More than 50.29 lakh vaccine doses administered yesterday till 7 p.m. More than 18 crore vaccine doses administered in the age group of 18 to 44 years so far.
COVID-19 continues to claim an ever larger number of lives in Bangladesh as the country records highest single-day COVID death toll. Positivity rate stands over 27%. India delivers 183 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen through 5th Oxygen Express to aid Bangladesh in fight against the pandemic.
In a major development, star footballer Messi not to stay at FC Barcelona. The club cites financial and structural obstacles. No statement from the player yet.
Rain interrupts play on the second day of first test between India and England at Trent Bridge. England make a comeback after Indian openers dominate the English bowlers. India to resume day 3 at 125 for 4.
All right, those were the top stories. Let's get to the news in detail now. We begin with the national headlines.
In a first-of-its-kind initiative, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will interact with heads of Indian missions abroad along with stakeholders of the trade and commerce sector of the country today at 6 p.m. via video conferencing. The event will mark a clarion call by PM Modi for local goes global, make in India for the world. Exports have a huge employment generation potential, especially for MSMEs and high labor-intensive sectors, with a cascading effect on the manufacturing sector and the overall economy. The purpose of the interaction is to provide a focused thrust to leverage and expand India's export and its share in global trade. The interaction aims to energize all stakeholders towards expanding our export potential and utilizing the local capabilities to fulfill global demand. Union Commerce Minister and External Affairs Minister will also be present during the interaction, which will also witness the participation of secretaries of more than 20 departments, state government officials, members of export promotion councils and chambers of commerce. And joining us now is our correspondent Meghna Dev. A very good morning to you, Meghna. And well, you're covering this event and initiative, the first of its kind to expand India's export. The Prime Minister himself will be addressing Indian missions abroad. Give us a sense of its significance and what kind of an initiative and what it aims to do.
Yes, Rukma, a very unique, obviously first of its kind, very unique initiative where Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be interacting with heads of Indian missions and obviously the stakeholders of the trade and commerce sector. Now, this is obviously to give a clarion call for local goes global, make in India for the world. Now, what also important is we know that the exports are having a huge employment generation potential, and when we especially talk about the MSMEs and the labor-intensive sectors, this is obviously having a lot of effect on the overall economy of the country. And obviously the purpose of the interaction when we talk about is more on expanding the export and more on, creating more place or more share for, India's share in global trade. So basically, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be emphasizing on a few sectors. We have earlier also seen Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasizing on the production-linked incentive schemes like PLI schemes, which have been launched for maybe mobile and electronics, medical devices, pharma sectors, and all of them have been well received. So, this is just another initiative wherein the Prime Minister will be talking to, the head of missions as well as, to the stakeholders in business and trade, so that, local goes global. This initiative also, picks up because, we are a huge country which has earlier embarked on the mission of Atmanirbhar Bharat, we call self-reliant India. So now Atmanirbhar Bharat, how does it merge with local, with the global? So that's what the emphasis of the entire interaction will be upon. And time and again, India has also shown that our goal is, a global good. So
right.
we have seen during the pandemic also, while India also had a lot of need for, needed assistance, but India also provided assistance to the rest of the world. We are one of the largest producers in generic medicines. We had ensured supplies to the world.
Yes.
So, our global approach is something that is that had also, been consistent through the pandemic, and also the FDIs had not dropped much during the pandemic, rather it has increased. So I think this is just another initiative when the Prime Minister would be emphasizing more on, how our local products can go global and how we can have our bigger share in the, in the global economy. So this is what the Prime Minister would be emphasizing on, and the reason he is talking to the head of missions as well as the, the trade organizations.
All right, Meghna, he will be interacting. Now, when the idea of Vocal for Local was initiated, it was specified that it is not a self-centered model of growth for the country. At the same time, now when it has been broadened into local for world, I would want you to talk more about how conducive is the environment, the timing for India to reach out with its goods, with its locally produced goods to the world, given the pandemic times we're living in.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the entire infrastructure, or we can say the entire atmosphere, the environment that has been given to, be it the investments that are coming from abroad, or be it, for the global companies to set up their, manufacturing units in India, all of that has been very, favorable for other countries, for other manufacturers, organizations. So this has definitely helped India to actually bring more investments into the country. But besides that, when we talk about, as you said, vocal for local was, such an initiative wherein even small, like a sector of toys, a sector of toys was also given a lot of prominence, that, how Indian-made, local-made toys can have a prominence across the country as well as in the world, how to market it. So creating brand values for things that are manufactured in India and that can go global. So this would also be something that would be laid emphasis upon. Besides that, the Prime Minister had earlier once said that the government is continuously carrying out, kinds of reforms to boost domestic manufacturing as well, and especially the PLI scheme. Over 2 lakh crores was earmarked for the PLI scheme, and there is an expectation that the scheme would result in increasing production about $520 billion in the next 5 years. So definitely this comes a very important that how we can increase our the production, and how the entire ecosystem of manufacturing in India and the local manufacturing can go abroad. So this is something that would be laid emphasis upon when we talk about the companies in India and their global standards of manufacturing, their global approach to to create a brand which can go global. So this would be majorly the emphasis here. And when we have seen Vocal for Local was a big hit, and it did actually create a space for and an awareness for local products. So local going global, this interaction would also lay emphasis on that, and would actually create more space for local products, creating a brand globally.
All right. Thank you so much, Meghna, for joining us with those inputs. We'll come back to you again during the day when the Prime Minister holds this event in the evening today. Let's turn focus to Parliament now. When we talk of the action in Parliament on the 5th day of the 3rd week of the monsoon session, Lok Sabha is slated to discuss COVID under Rule 193. Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will move the Taxation Amendment Bill 2021 for consideration and passage. The bill further aims to amend the Income Tax Act 1961 and Finance Act 2012. Union Minister Dharmendra Pradhan will move the Central Universities Amendment Bill 2021. In Rajya Sabha, there are various important bills slated for consideration and passage, which include Safeguarding and Adjudicating Farmers' Economic Rights Commission Bill 2018, Population Regulation Bill 2019, State Reorganization Commission Bill 2019, the Constitution Amendment Bill 2019, Amendment of Article 343, the Constitution Amendment Bill 2019, Amendment of Articles 217 and 224. Several private members' bills are also lined up for introduction in both the houses. All right, to get us more on that, our correspondent Amrit Pal is joining us. Amrit, good morning. We've told about the legislative agenda that has to be taken in both the houses of Parliament today, but again, the central issue of smooth functioning of the Parliament lies on the intentions of the opposition, which we've seen have not been good all through the past days of the monsoon session. Talk more about it. How do we expect the day to be today at Parliament?
Preeti, we expect the uproar to continue, though it's primarily most of the Friday we see a lot of private members' bills, and as you said, apart from the few bills listed in the legislative business, mostly they are private member bills that are lined up. There are 247 private member bills in the Lok Sabha and 32 in the Rajya Sabha. But the opposition stand remains the same, that they wish to, discuss with the government the issues. They insist that the issues of Pegasus, spyware and farmers' laws, etc. be discussed first, and all other business be dropped, which the government is not amenable to. So therefore, the logjam continues right into the 3rd week, as the 3rd week comes to a close, and with not much time left for the monsoon session to end, just another week to go. The government has been, pushing the legislative agenda through, but that's not the optimal way of doing things in a parliamentary democracy. Of course, it would have been better if there was debate and due deliberance on the bills that were brought up and passed. But they had to be passed by a voice vote in the absence of the opposition agreeing to discussing them. So one expects the last day of the third week to be no different.
Right, expectations not very high as far as the opposition's behavior is concerned, and as you've mentioned, Amritpal Singh, the business of the House continues to go through in the form of bills continuing to get passed. But as you said, the opposition says that, you know, it wants discussion on issues of Farm Bill and, you know, but it has its own conditions. How long can it continue with this stance? The message that's going out, we'd like you to comment on that. And also, well, in the context of Parliament's history, how would you say the opposition can, how long would you say the opposition can be justified, you know, in continuing to disrupt Parliament this way?
Well, if we're talking about how long, they can do it as long as they want. And as far as history goes, we've seen entire sessions get washed out. It's nothing new. It's not just that this opposition is doing it. Those in power today have done the same while they were in opposition. So history has been, history says that if the opposition is adamant, there have been sessions that have been complete washouts. So if the monsoon session does result to be so, in the sense that, you know, though technically the legislative business would have been conducted, but of course, one knows without due debate that should have gone into, or the participation one expects of the opposition in, in a parliamentary democracy, and that is the idea of these parliament sessions, so that whatever the government brings in as bills are discussed. If changes are sought, they are discussed. But as I said, it's happened in the past. Many sessions have finally been, complete washouts because the opposition was insistent upon debating particular issues or, protesting against them, raising placards, being in the well of the House, shouting, walkouts. This has been a part of the history of parliamentary democracy. Now, as far as what is the message going out, if you listen to the government, the argument is that it is, people's time, it's people's money, these are important legislations. The opposition should cooperate. The government is ready to discuss them. The opposition should, listen to the government and do it in a structured way. If you listen to the opposition, their argument is, these are very important things which affects the life of people, and therefore all other business can wait and they must be discussed first. So they both have their own points of views. And that's why the logjam continues, Rukma.
Right. Many thanks to you, Amritpal, for joining us there with those inputs. And I'm moving on to other news stories.
Yes, let's get to update on the COVID fight. In a significant achievement, India's COVID vaccination coverage has crossed 49 crore landmark. Cumulatively, 49 crore 45 lakh 58,204 doses have been administered. The new phase of universalization of COVID-19 vaccination commenced from 21st of June. More than 50.29 lakh vaccine doses have been administered on Thursday. 27 lakh 26,492 vaccine doses were administered as the first dose, and 4 lakh 81,823 vaccine doses were given as the second dose in the age group of 18 to 44 years on Thursday. Cumulatively, 16 crore 92 lakh 68,754 persons in the age group of 18 to 44 years across 37 states and union territories have received their first dose, and a total of 1 crore 7 lakh 72,537 have received their second dose since the start of phase 3 of the vaccination drive. 5 states, namely Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh, have administered more than 1 crore cumulative doses of COVID-19 vaccine in the age group of 18 to 44 years. Also, Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Chhattisgarh, Delhi, Haryana, Jharkhand, Kerala, Telangana, Himachal Pradesh, Odisha, Punjab, Uttarakhand and West Bengal have vaccinated more than 10 lakh beneficiaries in the age group of 18 to 44 years for the first dose of the vaccine.
And President Ramnath Kovind interacted with tea growers yesterday, organic farmers as well as tribal groups at Raj Bhavan in Uddagamandalam on Thursday as part of his 5-day tour of Tamil Nadu. During the interaction, the President discussed various issues that affect the lives of farmers and tribal groups. He appreciated that these groups have continued the natural cultivation of crops, a practice that needs to be nurtured as part of our traditional heritage. He said tribals also presented traditional mementos to the President of India and the First Lady. The Badagas presented their traditional umbrella to the President and traditional embroidered shawl to the First Lady. The Kotas and Todas presented their traditional shawls to the dignitaries.
Monsoon has wreaked havoc in central state of Madhya Pradesh. State Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan has informed that every affected family will get 50 kgs of food grains. Besides that, state administration will ensure availability of proper drinking water facility. We get to more in this report.
Flood situation continues to be grim in Madhya Pradesh. The central Indian state is facing its worst natural disaster in the last 70 years. More than 1,250 villages are inundated and severely affected. Over 700 people were rescued on Thursday. Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan is personally supervising the relief and rescue operations. More than 12,000 people have taken shelter in 60 relief camps set up in the flood-hit districts.
किसी व्यक्ति की जान चली गई दुर्भाग्य से तो 4 लाख रुपए की राशि उसके परिवार को देंगे। मकान अगर गिर गया है तो हमने तय किया है 95,000 रुपए की राशि एक अलग देते हैं, उसमें शौचालय मनरेगा की राशि मिला के 1,20,000 रुपया दे के मकान भी बनवाने का काम करेंगे। जो अनाज और बाकी चीजें घरेलू खराब हुई है उसका भी सर्वे करके उसमें भी राहत की राशि देंगे।
In the meantime, a video of State Home Minister Dr. Narottam Mishra has gone viral. He's seen supervising the rescue operation involving a dozen people who were trapped in flood in village Kotra of Datia district on Wednesday. Later, as the situation worsened, he himself had to be airlifted by the Indian Air Force. Bureau Report, DD India.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi will interact with beneficiaries of the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana PMGKAY in Madhya Pradesh tomorrow at 11 a.m. through video conferencing. Madhya Pradesh Governor Mangubhai Patel and Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan will be present on the occasion. The event will also witness the participation of ministers and officials of the food sector from Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Tripura, Haryana and Goa. An intensive campaign to create more awareness about the scheme is being conducted by the state government so that no eligible person is left out. The state will celebrate 7th August 2021 as Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana Day. Under PMGKAY, 4 crore 83 lakh beneficiaries in MP are getting free ration from over 25,000 fair price shops.
India has slammed OIC for reference to Jammu and Kashmir, saying that the organization has no locus standi in matters related to Jammu and Kashmir, which is an integral part of India. In response to the media queries on reference to the Union Territory made by General Secretariat of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, India has reiterated that OIC General Secretariat should refrain from allowing vested interests to exploit its platform for comments on the internal affairs of India. India has also lodged firm protests with Pakistan High Commission in New Delhi over attacks on minority community and also their places of worship in Pakistan. India is deeply concerned over continued attacks on minority community in Pakistan, including the places of worship. It called upon Pakistan to ensure safety and security of minorities there. The MEA spokesperson condemned such attacks while talking to media in New Delhi.
We have seen disturbing reports on social media of a violent mob attack on a Ganesh temple in Rahim Yar Khan in Punjab province of Pakistan. The mob attacked the temple, desecrated the holy idols, and set fire to the premises. In addition to attacking the temple, the mob also attacked surrounding houses belonging to the Hindu community. Incidents of violence, discrimination, and persecution against minority communities, including attacks on places of worship, have continued unabated in Pakistan. Within the last year itself, various temples and gurdwaras have been attacked, including the Mata Rani Bhatiani Mandir in Sindh in January 2020, the Gurdwara Shri Janam Sthan in January 2020, Hindu temple in Karak in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in December 2020. These incidents are occurring at an alarming rate, while the state and security institutions in Pakistan have stood by idly and completely failed in preventing these attacks on the minority communities and their places of worship. The Pakistani Chargé d'Affaires in the High Commission here in Delhi was summoned today afternoon, and a firm protest was lodged expressing our grave concerns at this reprehensible incident and the continued attacks on the freedom of religion of the minority community and their places of religious worship, and calling upon Pakistan to ensure the safety, security, and well-being of its minority communities.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is on a two-day visit to Iran. On Thursday, the EAM was in Tehran, where he represented India at the swearing-in ceremony of Iran's new president, Ibrahim Raisi. During his visit, Dr. Jaishankar will call on President Raisi and also hold talks with other leaders on the sidelines. The visit of Dr. Jaishankar will be an opportunity for the two sides to exchange notes on regional developments, among others. Meanwhile, India has scheduled an urgent discussion on Afghanistan, where violence has escalated in the recent past.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met the Foreign Minister of Kuwait. Both leaders took forward their discussions on post-COVID economic and also other cooperation. The cooperation also is in the field of health. They also held useful exchanges of perspectives on regional development. The External Affairs Minister also met Foreign Minister of Nicaragua. He appreciated his warm words for our projects in power, health and ICT. He added, cooperation between India and Nicaragua is a model of South-South solidarity. He also met Foreign Minister of Bolivia. Both the leaders discussed development, partnership and also multilateral cooperation. The External Affairs Minister also met the Foreign Minister of Oman. Both the leaders discussed strong bilateral partnership, GCC developments and also regional issues. He said that they look forward to working with him closely.
And let's move on now to all the top stories making headlines across the world in our next segment, Across the Globe. We begin by taking a look at COVID-19 figures from global figures. The fight against COVID-19 continues worldwide. More than 20 crore, 16 lakh people have so far been infected, while recoveries have crossed 18 crore, 14 lakhs. The deadly virus has claimed the lives of over 42 lakh 79,000 people globally. The United States has been witnessing a spike in new daily COVID cases with over 3 crore, 62 lakhs. The country remains the worst affected by the pandemic. Deaths due to COVID-19 in the US have crossed 6 lakh 31,000.
All right, news coming in from neighboring Bangladesh. COVID-19 pandemic continues to claim an ever larger number of lives in Bangladesh as Thursday recorded a new high in deaths in one day. According to the latest information, 12,744 new COVID cases were reported in the country over the last 24 hours on Thursday. The death toll surpassed the earlier record of 258 deaths reported on 27th of July. However, the sample positivity rate declined to 27.12% from 28.54% on Wednesday. Bangladesh government meanwhile announced the details of the extended period of COVID restrictions between August 5th and 10th. During this period, industries and factories will be opened and domestic flights will be operated with health guidelines in place from Friday. Meanwhile, the 5th Oxygen Express from India delivered 183 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen to Bangladesh. The train with 10 containers reached Benapole on Thursday. The first Oxygen Express was sent to Bangladesh from Tata Nagar on July 24th to help the supply of oxygen for treatment of COVID patients in Bangladesh hospitals. With the latest consignment, India has supplied 983 metric tons of liquid medical oxygen to Bangladesh through the railways.
And the United States has been grappling with the COVID pandemic for some time now, along with the rest of the world. But recently, the number of cases are seeing an increase to a 6-month high, with more than 100,000 infections reported on Wednesday. The 7-day average of new reported cases has touched nearly 95,000, a 5-fold increase in less than a month. The White House on Thursday said 7 states with among the lowest COVID-19 vaccination rates account for half of the country's new cases and hospitalizations. Top U.S. infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci on Thursday warned that cases in the U.S. could double to 200,000 per day due to the variant in the coming weeks. Florida, which has been reporting a record number of daily new cases, has set yet another grim hospitalization record, with 12,373 beds occupied by Thursday by confirmed COVID-19 patients. More children are hospitalized with the virus in Florida than in any other U.S. state.
Wherever we have low vaccination coverage, we're going to see a steep surge. So I think, it's going to look like last summer's surge for now. It's going to go across the state, go across the southern states. It'll move into Texas pretty soon. It's already starting here in Houston in our Texas Medical Center. Admissions are piling up. And unfortunately, the opening of schools is going to be an accelerant because we're going to see a lot more kids, adolescents, and unvaccinated staff get infected as well. So the message is we've got to do a better job vaccinating. We've got to reach levels that are in Vermont and Massachusetts here in the South. Otherwise, the numbers will continue to climb.
Meanwhile, top U.S. infectious disease official Dr. Anthony Fauci said that the U.S. was working to get immunocompromised individuals for COVID booster shots as soon as possible. Now, he also said that getting more people vaccinated as quickly as possible would help prevent future mutations of COVID, and also that the rising Delta variant in the U.S. can be turned around with more vaccinations.
Immunocompromised individuals are vulnerable. The reason is that it is clear now from the observational data that was made that they do not make, in general, with some exceptions, but in general, do not make an adequate response that we feel would be adequately protected. So in this regard, it is extremely important for us to move to get those individuals their boosters. And we are now working on that and will make that be implemented as quickly as possible, because for us and for the individuals involved, it is a very high priority.
The White House on Thursday confirmed it is considering requiring foreign visitors to be vaccinated as it plans to eventually reopen international travel. However, it said that there is no final decision and was not immediately going to lift restrictions. White House COVID response coordinator Jeff Zients confirmed an interagency working group is developing plans that foreign nationals may need to have some type of vaccine requirement.
Wherever we have low vaccination coverage, we're going to see a steep surge. So I think, it's going to look like last summer's surge for now. It's going to go across the state, go across the southern states. It'll move into Texas pretty soon. It's already starting here in Houston in our Texas Medical Center. Admissions are piling up. And unfortunately, the opening of schools is going to be an accelerant because we're going to see a lot more kids, adolescents, and unvaccinated staff get infected as well. So the message is we've got to do a better job vaccinating. We've got to reach levels that are in Vermont and Massachusetts here in the South. Otherwise, the numbers will continue to climb.
And Chilean President Sebastián Piñera on Thursday said that Chile will begin administering a booster shot to those already inoculated with Sinovac's COVID-19 vaccine. The decision was taken after studies showed that the initial 2 doses lose some effectiveness after several months. Chile launched one of the world's fastest mass inoculation campaigns against COVID in February and has now fully vaccinated more than 60% of its population. Chile will begin administering an additional dose of Oxford's AstraZeneca vaccine on the 11th of August, beginning with citizens over 55 who received their shots before the 31st of March. Deaths due to COVID in Chile stand at 35,806, where there have been a total of about 1.6 million confirmed cases.
The UN Security Council will be discussing the worsening security situation in Afghanistan in a meeting under the Indian presidency today. This will be the first meeting under India's presidency. The meeting aims to take stock of the situation in Afghanistan amidst fears of a possibility of Taliban gaining control of Afghanistan and its spillover effect in Central Asia. Russian and Uzbek special forces are carrying out joint exercises in Uzbekistan. Here's a detailed report.
United Nations Security Council is all set to discuss the evolving situation on Friday, the 6th of August, under Indian presidency. India is the president of the council this month and decides the agenda of the body. The Indian envoy to the United Nations, T.S. Tirumurthy, tweeted, UN Security Council will meet on Friday, the 6th of August, under Indian presidency to discuss and take stock of the situation in Afghanistan. This development follows a request by the Afghan Foreign Minister Hanif Atmar. He requested External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar to hold a special council on the situation in Afghanistan.
India has been supporting the government and people of Afghanistan in realizing their aspirations for a peaceful, democratic and prosperous future, where the interests of all sections of Afghan society, including women and minorities, are protected. We are closely monitoring the evolving security situation in Afghanistan, and we continue to call for an immediate and comprehensive ceasefire.
A car bomb blast followed by sporadic gunfire announced the arrival of the intense war in Afghanistan to its capital, Kabul, on Tuesday. The explosions' echo, however, have reverberated way beyond the confines of the fortified city of Kabul. The world is on the edge as the fighting rages in Afghanistan, terrified about the possibility of a Taliban gaining control of Afghanistan and its spillover effect on the immediate neighborhood. That perhaps explains these visuals. Special forces of Russia and Uzbekistan taking part in joint exercises in Uzbekistan amid fears in both countries that a worsening security situation in Afghanistan could spill over into Central Asia. The separate drills are taking place on August 5th to 10th and involve Russian, Tajik and Uzbek forces. Earlier, troops from Russia and Uzbekistan also took part in joint combat training in Uzbekistan. On the other hand, world is concerned about the humanitarian crisis that is sweeping many parts of Afghanistan. The United Nations is deeply concerned about the safety and protection of tens of thousands of people in Afghanistan's Lashkar Gah who could be trapped by heavy fighting between Afghan government forces and the Taliban. Fighting has been particularly heavy around the city of Herat near the western border with Iran and Lashkar Gah and Kandahar in the south.
Our humanitarian colleagues also tell us that in Helmand and Kandahar, there are reported increased civilian casualties, destruction or damage to civilian houses, as well as to critical infrastructure, including hospitals.
The Taliban have stepped up their campaign to defeat the US-backed government since April as foreign forces complete their withdrawal after 20 years of war. Bureau Report, DD India.
And our news about the weather situation around the world. In Greece, wildfires north of Athens leaped back to life on Thursday as searing conditions persisted. And emergency crews battled blazes across the country for a third day running. A wall of dark smoke rose high above the Greek capital as residents fled suburbs and asylum seekers were evacuated. Firefighters had managed to control some of the blazes near Athens earlier in the day, but the winds fanned them back into life with flames burning close to the motorway connecting Athens to the northern region. The fire near the archaeological game site in ancient Olympia continued to burn wooded areas on Thursday. The site where the Olympic flame begins its journey to the city hosting the modern Olympics is one of Greece's most popular tourist attractions. In 2007, the same area was ravaged by wildfires that killed dozens of people but spared Olympia's ruins, sports venues and temples.
Greek Prime Minister meanwhile urged people to comply with evacuation orders and avoid unnecessary travel. Earlier, the Greek finance minister visited an area in the western Peloponnese near the site of the ancient Olympic Games where firefighters fought all night to save one of Greece's best-known archaeological sites. Authorities meanwhile warned of more blazes as temperatures hovered around 40 degrees Celsius. More than 150 wildfires have broken out across Greece since Tuesday, destroying houses, forcing the evacuation of dozens of towns and villages and burning thousands of acres of forest land. And in Turkey, a wildfire that reached the compound of a coal-fueled power plant in the southwest, forcing residents to flee in boats and cars, was contained on Thursday after raging for some 11 hours. Turkey's worst wildfires in decades have burned for 9 days amid scorching heat, low humidity and constantly shifting strong winds. The fires have so far killed at least 8 people and countless animals. A European Union disaster response group said that firefighters and water-dropping planes were being sent from European Union members to Italy, Greece, Albania and North Macedonia.
And the Andes mountain range, which draws skiers to South America, is facing historically low snowfall this year during a decade-long drought that scientists link to global warming. Scant rain and snowfall are leaving many of the majestic mountains between Ecuador and Argentina with patchy snow cover, or no snow at all as dry brown earth lies exposed. Satellite images from July 2020 and this year show a marked decrease in snow cover that is mirrored in water level measurements for rivers. Ski resorts have reopened after lengthy closures during the pandemic and are attracting jubilant skiers to the Argentina-Chile border, but scarce snowfall is forcing many resorts to move snow to cover popular runs or make artificial snow.
US President Joe Biden has signed an act to award 4 congressional gold medals to the United States Capitol Police and those who protected the US Capitol during the January 6 riots. Also, the event at the White House Rose Garden was also attended by Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as law enforcement officers, their families and congressional dignitaries. The Congressional Gold Medal is the U.S. Congress's highest expression of national appreciation for distinguished achievements and also contributions by individuals or institutions. More than 535 people have been charged with taking part in the violence when supporters of the then President Donald Trump stormed into the Capitol in an attempt to stop Congress from certifying Democratic President Joe Biden's election victory.
And Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi has promised to take action to lift harsh sanctions imposed by the United States and bridge the gap with dissatisfied Iranians. In his inaugural address to Parliament and foreign dignitaries, Raisi signaled that he will continue talks to resolve the country's 2015 nuclear deal with world powers from which the US unilaterally withdrew 3 years ago. A 6th round of negotiations with deal signatories in the Austrian capital ended in June, after which Iran signaled that talks can only continue after Raisi assumes office this week.
US President Joe Biden has offered temporary safe haven to Hong Kong residents in the United States. Biden directed the Department of Homeland Security to implement a deferral of removal for up to 18 months for Hong Kong residents currently in the United States, citing compelling foreign policy reasons. The White House said that the move made clear the United States will not stand idly by as China breaks its promises to Hong Kong and to the international community. The US government in July applied more sanctions on China's officials in Hong Kong and warned companies of risks of operating under a national security law China implemented last year to criminalize what it considers subversion, secessionism, terrorism, or collusion with foreign forces.
And the 76th anniversary of the Hiroshima atomic bombing is being observed today at 8:15 a.m. local time on the 6th of August, 1945. A bomb nicknamed Little Boy was dropped by a US warplane, obliterating the city of Hiroshima in Japan, killing nearly 140,000 people. 3 days later, Nagasaki was bombed, killing nearly 70,000 people, before Japan surrendered, marking the end of the Second World War. Japan was the only country that suffered nuclear devastation in the war.
And up next, we get to all the sporting action in Sports Track.
We start off with news from the Tokyo Olympics. Our women's hockey team are currently trailing. Great Britain has established a lead in the match that we were telling you about. Great Britain are the defending champions as far as hockey in the women's category is concerned. The bronze medal match is underway at the Tokyo Olympics. The girls from Great Britain, who had shocked the Netherlands in the final of the 2016 games at Rio, went down by a 1-5 margin against Alison Anand's world champions in the semi-finals, while the Indians lost to Argentina 1-2.
All right, joining us for this is our correspondent Ashok Martulia. Ashok, which way do we expect the match to end? The fourth quarter in progress, and we see that
Great Britain have clearly established
Ashok,
a lead.
Are we audible?
India team, women's Indian team, they have lost against Great Britain in today's match, and the way Indian team played today against Britain, after winning against Australians, then the way they played today, it is a remarkable for Indian women's team.
Right.
It is a completely different team, though we lost against Great Britain, but the way we played, we have shown that kind of resilience and grit against the very team like Great Britain. It's a huge achievement for a team, women's hockey team. I think it's like a watershed moment for Indian women hockey as far as today's match is concerned. So we lost match, but we won the heart, Preeti.
All right, we lost the match, but we won the heart. Ashok, a loss does not mean it always is an opportunity to learn from the mistakes and the shortcomings. Talk more about what were the decisive moments in the match. Where was it that the Indian Eves fall short of?
Preeti, I think that the fourth quarter was a decisive moment when we got our women hockey team member got one yellow card and one green card. I think that was a decisive moment because it's very difficult for Indian team to play with 10 players on the field. So fourth quarter was a really decisive moment. Sometime happened, and the way the Britain's team they got the penalty corner. Sometimes the players they hit deliberately to the opponent's players' feet, and that was the reason that Indian women's team they conceded penalty corner, and eventually they scored goal. I think, but if you will see the whole match of Indian hockey team today, it was fabulous. It was like par excellence the way Indian team shown on the field today.
All right, let's
and
take
joining
that
us
forward
now,
to our guest who's joining us, former
Mervyn
gold.
Fernandes, former Olympic gold medalist in hockey. A very warm welcome to you, Fernandes ji. Well, when we talk about today's match, Indian women have done us proud. Despite the fact that they've lost to Great Britain, we have to accept Great Britain, defending champions, and we did go in as the underdog. Your reactions?
Many people would say so many things, but one thing that makes me feel proud of this team is the way they played the entire Olympic event. To begin with 3 losses, and so badly they lost in the first 3 matches, nobody would ever have given India a chance to even reach the quarterfinals. But the faith that the coach had, the people had of our performances, showed them in good light in the quarterfinal, where they beat the number 1 team, number 2 team, that's Australia, which in itself is a great victory for India. And I don't feel bad at all that we could not make it. I do feel bad that we could not get the bronze after playing so well. I mean, coming back after 2 goals down in the important bronze medal match. It was a fantastic performance by our girls. It's so close and yet so far. So, I mean, it's warmed all our hearts with their performances, and I'm sure that this team will do wonders in the coming tournaments.
All right, not a medal, but it has won the hearts. Mr. Fernandes, we were talking about it with our correspondent also. If we did not win the match, it still gave us scope. It still gave us, moments to cherish, moments to make memories. What were the moments, good or bad, in these match, which would, live on?
I can't see any bad in this. I mean, I see everything good in it.
All right.
A team that is 7th or 8th position in the world rankings, and then you're beating teams like Australia. You're matching up against the great team Britain. I thought for a moment that Great Britain were nervous the way they were playing.
Yes.
And it was the Indians who were all over them, coming back 3-all and then taking a lead. I mean, it's so nice to see our girls have faith in their ability. It gives me a feeling that there will be a lot of youngsters who are watching our girls perform so well, and there will be so many who would want to emulate this great, the great way that India has played in the Olympics. I'm really, really thrilled and proud the way they have played. Nobody ever gave India a chance to reach the semi-finals. They have done it. They have Gurjeet Kaur. Oh, she'll be a person who will inspire so many youngsters among the women to take up drag flicking, which is so difficult, among the, you need such a lot of power, so much strength, and this is what Gurjeet did. She scored 4 short corner goals when it mattered the most. She was not able to convert them in the initial matches, but we saw that when it mattered most, she scored short corner. It was like a man converting a short corner, with her drag flick. Hats off to her, to Vandana Kataria. They're all going to be big names for Indian hockey of the women that participated.
All right, so
Yes,
we'll end it at that. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you for joining in on DD India with your thoughts.
So Mervyn Fernandes there. Well, the Indian women's hockey team have done us proud, as he was saying, and as perhaps everyone will say, Indian women's hockey too has arrived, and it's the beginning perhaps of a glorious history to be written, a glorious chapter in this sport as far as India is concerned from now on.
Indeed. It's not just this match which we were looking forward to, but there's a lot of action also ahead through the day. When we talk of Tokyo Olympics, India's medal favourite Bajrang Punia will be in action in the 65 kg freestyle wrestling category. There are a lot of expectations also from Punia, and it will be interesting to note his performance against Kyrgyzstan grappler.
In football, Argentinian striker Lionel Messi will leave Barcelona despite both parties having reached an agreement over a new contract. The La Liga club said on Thursday, citing economic and structural obstacles to the renewal of the deal. Despite FC Barcelona and Lionel Messi having reached an agreement and the clear intention of both parties to sign a new contract today, this cannot happen, they said, because of financial and structural obstacles, Barca said in a statement.
Rain has interrupted match on second day of the first test between India and England at Trent Bridge. England made a comeback after Indian openers dominated the English bowlers. India will resume day 3 at 125 for 4. India were 125 for 4 against England in their first innings. Also, England were all out for 183 runs in their first innings on day 1 at Trent Bridge in Nottingham. Earlier, England captain Joe Root won the toss and elected to bat first.
And now let's take a look at the weather report and that weather forecast.
Scattered to fairly widespread rainfall is likely over Uttarakhand and West Uttar Pradesh during the next 5 days, with isolated heavy rainfall over these areas during the same period. Also, fairly widespread rainfall is likely over Madhya Pradesh during the next 5 days. Fairly widespread rainfall and with isolated heavy falls is likely over Odisha and Jharkhand and also Bihar. And now we take a look at temperatures across major cities of the country. Alright, that's it in this edition of Breakfast News this morning. But before we go, we again leave you with this reminder to keep following the COVID appropriate behaviors, and those who are eligible to get yourself vaccinated. Remember, the fight against the pandemic is not over, and it is still not the time to let our guards down.
And in glimpses of the day, we take you to Thailand, where these penguins are being seen marching and splashing to keep themselves fit during the lockdown in Khao Kyo Open Zoo in Chonburi. Take a look and enjoy. Namaskar.
Bye-bye.